Welcome to the GOTO Podcast. Each episode covers the brightest and boldest ideas from the world's leading experts in software development. Tune in for practical lessons, compelling theories, and plenty of inspiration. GOTO gathers the brightest minds in the software community to help developers tackle projects today, plan for tomorrow, and create a better future. Stay up to date with the latest in tech through GOTO's top-rated events in cities like Amsterdam, London, Copenhagen, and Chicago, and by subscribing to the GOTO Conference's YouTube channel, where you can find thousands more high-quality dev talks. Learn more at gotopia.tech.
Hello and welcome to GOTO Book Club. I'm really excited because I get to talk to some of my colleagues today, and we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is Quarkus. So we're going to be talking about Quarkus in action. Now, before we do introductions, have you all got your copies of the book with you?
Yep.
Yay! We can do like coordinated book waving, although I'm digital only, so I can't do my book wave, but you two can do your book wave.
And
Yay!
signed by us.
Yay! Although it's kind of easy to sign your own copy of a book, isn't it? So before we sort of jump into the contents of the book, I guess we should probably introduce you all. So maybe, do you want to just, start with a little bit of who you are and how you came to be involved with Quarkus and that kind of thing? Maybe starting with Martin?
Okay, thanks, Oli. So my name is Stefanko. I basically started with Quarkus contributing since 0.12. I used to work before in Whitefly or JBoss EAP application servers for about 8 years. And now for almost 2 years, I am part of the core Quarkus team working on several extensions.
Hi, I am Jan, and my history is very similar to Martin's. I also started contributing to Quarkus very early on. As a Red Hat employee. Now I'm an IPM employee because we were moved from Red Hat to IPM. I also worked on Wildfly/JBoss application server in the past. So yeah, it's very, very similar.
Great. And today I want to talk sort of partly about the contents of the book, but also partly about sort of the process of writing the book. Because I think for both of you, is it your first book? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Such a sort of a big, exciting thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before we sort of even start about like why you wrote the book, I guess it might be useful to think about like why people would want to read the book. And I was sort of thinking about that, and I was like, well, the answer is probably obvious for this, which is that people who would want to use Quarkus would want to read the book. So maybe actually let's like go 2 steps back and say, why would people want to use Quarkus? Why is Quarkus interesting and exciting to, well, obviously it's exciting to you because you wrote a book about it, but why would it be for other people as well?
So that's my question that we are getting all the time. Probably I would split it into several different things. For me, because I'm still an engineer, and my day job is definitely the developer experience that Quarkus provides. The dev mode, which is integral part of Quarkus, and we are using it extensively throughout the book, is basically probably the single most productive tool that I ever encountered in my career. I can go so fast that I'm not even able to catch up with everything that I'm doing at the same time. And you will see this inside the book heavily. And do you want to talk about the performance?
To the developer experience, I would also add that there's this thing called continuous testing that allows you to also run tests in the background. You don't even know about them, that they are running until they start failing. And more reasons. There are things like easy native mode integration, a fast Git performance, blazing fast startup time thanks to build time initialization, which is something very innovative and new in the Java world, that the application gets partially initialized already during the build. And when you actually start the application, it's blazing fast because most of the initialization steps have already been done before. And it has a growing ecosystem of integrations. It glues together all the frameworks that people know and like. So it's not like you need to learn a lot of new frameworks. You can, if you're a enterprise Java developer, you already know most of them, and Quarkus just glues them together
Just to add on this, like I definitely agree that running the dev mode is something that you will do just in the morning, then you will forget about it until you see some like green changes to red. And like there are so many features on top of like continuous testing, dev services, dev UI, etc., which we have separate chapter about in the book, which is encompassed in this dev mode that like we cannot list everything here right now.
And I just want to go back to one of the things that you were saying at the beginning, Martin, about the sort of the productivity and the developer experience. Because I think, certainly from my perspective, sometimes now there's this conversation that says, oh, nobody needs to care about developer experience because, everybody can just use an LLM to write the code. But we spend like a fairly small amount of our time actually writing code as developers, I would say. And we spend much more of our time reading code. And so the fact that Quarkus has this sort of like really beautiful, clean, compact syntax for the code that's also really familiar, I think is so important, even if, you've got an LLM just sort of spitting out the code, because no one wants lots and lots of LLM generated code. It's just not a good idea.
Exactly. Like for sure. And like I would just add that Quarkus is one of the frameworks which are pushing LLM integrations in Java. I made the link chain for J project. So like the integration with LLM is so easy that sometimes you will even forget what is calling an LLM and what is actually calling some of your code. Happened to me.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. The first time I used that, I was just like, wow, was that it? I thought that would be harder.
And very soon there will be a new feature that it actually introduces an AI assistant into Quarkus. So when writing your application itself, you can get assistance, but that already knows all the internal details about Quarkus. That's a completely new thing that's coming soon. And obviously the book doesn't talk about it, but I just wanted to point out that it's coming soon.
Yeah, it's very cool. So what inspired you to write a book? So, you like Quarkus and you have like evenings and weekends free. And then you say, no, I wish to change that.
So I probably will take this one because I kind of force Jan to co-author with me. Actually, it was Heinz Kabutz. You probably know him. I met him, I don't remember at which conference, and he told me that the thing that he regrets is that he didn't write a book before he was 30. So I set the goal for myself that I want to write a book before I was 30. Basically, then I reached out to some of our internal people at Red Hat and they pointed me to Manning. And by the chance, back then, somebody was already interested in writing Quarkus in action, but they dropped for, I don't know the reason. And they asked me, like, do you want to take Quarkus in action? I was like, hell yeah. So that's it, more or less. Then I reached out to Quarkus team because I didn't feel confident enough that I can write the book myself, or at least it would take a very long time with my day job. So Jan volunteered to help, and here we are.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense to have help, both because things are always better with company, but also because in something like Quarkus, where it's changing so fast, because you mentioned that Jan, that there's always new stuff coming. And so you need to parallelize in order to be able to get ahead of the sort of the wave of coming technology.
And you don't know how right you are, because if I remember correctly, we started with the Quarkus version 3.9, if I remember correctly, the first drafts.
The first was with Quarkus 2 point something, not even 3.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So 2 point something, I don't even remember. And the final version is 3.15. So you understand 3.15.1. So you understand how much rewrites and updates we had to do throughout the process.
Yeah. You just want your colleagues to just stop working so that you can finish it.
And the fun part is that the actual code was easy because in Quarkus we have this upgrade mechanism with open rewrite. So updating the code is very, very easy. But you have like 300 pages to go through and update all the versions.
Yeah, and of course updating screenshots is no fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and any kind of update of something was actually quite hard. That's also one of the aspects of working multiple people working on book, because their work depends on each other, and when one person decides later on to change something in the previous chapter, then it all has to be communicated, and the following chapters have to be adjusted. That means the other person will have to do the adjustments too, and it's hard.
Yeah. So can you sort of talk through, because you hinted at this a bit about how sort of each thing builds on the other. Can you talk through like the structure of the book and what you decided to include, and then maybe like as well what you sort of didn't include and why?
So yeah, let's just like basically skip quickly through the table of contents. So the book is split into 3 parts. The first part is called Getting Started with Quarkus, which is like the introduction, the motivation, why you want to use Quarkus, and what the basic principles of it are. Then within the first part, there's this chapter 2 that lets you write and run your first Quarkus application, where you already get to use to see the benefits of dev mode and stuff. Then in chapter 3, we show all the goodies, development experience goodies. That one is really, developers will really like chapter 3 because it shows all the developer productivity things. We will dive into them in a bit, I guess. And then the book starts developing a big project. It's called Car Rental Acme. It's a sort of microservices that are like a system of managing cars, a car fleet for a car rental company. So while reading the book, the reader will create this set of microservices. It's like 5 microservices, I think, connected via different kinds of protocols and using different kinds of databases and everything. In part 2 of the book, we mostly write these applications, and each chapter is focused on some particular framework or technology that is used. We deliberately made the system quite complicated by introducing all of the frameworks that we could, of course, because we wanted to show just a little bit of everything. So it shows how to develop REST APIs, REST clients, GraphQL APIs, GraphQL clients, gRPC services, gRPC clients. Then we get to a chapter about testing. Then there's a chapter that shows how to develop secure applications, and it's combined with developing front ends with HTMX. Then there's a chapter about using databases and Hibernate object relational mapping. Then there's something about reactive programming and something about reactive messaging. And that concludes part number 2. Part number 3 is about deploying Quarkus in the cloud. So there we get to containerizing the applications that we created during part 2 and deploying them in OpenShift. The last chapter, number 12, is about writing your own extension for Quarkus. If somebody decides to integrate their own framework, then this chapter will give the basic instructions how to do that.
So I would just add to respond to the second part of the question, why we chose what we chose and what we left out. More than anything, the biggest limitation was the number of pages, because if we would cover like everything in Quarkus is now around 850 to 900 extensions. I'm losing track. It's
yeah.
So we basically tried to design a system that was purposely overcomplicating as much as we can. Really different databases, reactive access, Hibernate reactive to that matter, NoSQL, different HTTP, REST, as William mentioned, gRPC, GraphQL. Basically, already by the end of the book, when you will run all the 5 services in dev mode, it will run another 12 containers just as the services, which is already kind of hard to run on not so strong machines. So we needed to make the cut there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and makes me laugh about the overcomplicated, because I can just imagine that, if it was a real application and, you'd sort of present it to the architecture review board and somebody would be like, this is CV driven development. You do not need to use all of these things. But of course, for learning, that's exactly what you want.
Exactly.
So you mentioned that there's like 800 or 900 extensions in the ecosystem. I don't know how you would know this unless you'd actually like gone and counted, but do you happen to know like what proportion of those are in the book, or like how many extensions are covered in the book?
I did try to count. I counted I counted by looking at the POM files and just filtering out all the extension artifact dependencies. And I got to 29 declared in the POMs, but it's definitely more because some extensions are brought in transitively.
Yeah.
But we have 29 distinct extension dependency declarations in our POMs.
Yeah, so 29 headline features that are covered. Cool.
Definitely the intention was to showcase the use cases for the application development. We didn't focus on showcasing all the extensions because definitely there are at least 5 databases that we didn't include because we just don't have the place for that.
Yeah. And so what section do you think people will be, or, what extension or what section do you think people will be most surprised about?
Oh, I would say that if for somebody that never touched Quarkus, definitely chapter 3, because that's deep dive into dev mode, and that's definitely most interesting feature of all. But for somebody who is already familiar with that, I would probably say reactive programming, because we are kind of stepping back from it, and people forget that Quarkus is built on top of Vertex or reactive core. So you are free to choose if you want to use reactive or just a little bit of reactive, which we are also showcasing. So I think that would be probably the best.
I definitely agree with Martin said. I would also add that maybe the cloud section, because some people might not know that Quarkus actually generates Kubernetes manifests. So it's very easy to deploy into Kubernetes.
Yeah, and because we like ourselves, we decided to do Kubernetes, OpenShift, and also serverless deployments. So you have everything in one chapter.
Cool. I was just in a talk the other day and I was thinking about what Quarkus does, because the talk was sort of the next step on from infrastructure as code, and it was all about application driven infrastructure. And I think that's sort of really ties quite nicely in with what Quarkus is doing in terms of getting the infrastructure declaration being driven by what's in the application rather than the other way around. I can share, this is a little one, but when I was reading the book, one of the things that surprised me, because I think I've been working on Quarkus for about 3.5 years, but I think no matter how long you've been working on Quarkus, there's always going to be things that are surprising for you. And I use code.quarkus.io all the time, and I had no idea that it had a REST API. So I was reading that. I was like, oh, cool. Learned something. And so I guess sort of going on from what section, people will be most surprised by for you personally, from sort of, where you started to where you are now, which sections did you learn the most for in the process of writing them?
Yeah, and you can go first because I need to think.
You can just say, I didn't, I knew it all. I knew it all.
We definitely didn't. No, of course. Yeah, for me, that was probably messaging, because I had very little knowledge about messaging before. And luckily, Martin did all the work writing most of that chapter. So I didn't have to do all the research by myself. Yeah, I had little knowledge about RabbitMQ, or zero knowledge about RabbitMQ, for example. So this was completely new to me.
So for me, it was definitely because I am on the other side of the spectrum. I use terminal for everything. So code.quarkus.io only if I need to do a demo. So for me, it was mostly front end, most likely, even if that's very one specific way how to do front end. But Jan did also very good job in describing how overall approach of Quarkus to front end is. And then I would say GraphQL and gRPC, because that's not something that I touched before.
Yeah, makes makes sense. And just to sort of like dive a bit deeper into this. So this is the test section, right? Like you say you learned a lot about messaging. So what is the Quarkus approach to messaging, and what does it bring beyond just like, using a RabbitMQ library without any extra sort of Quarkus support?
Well, there is this general API that abstracts you away from different messaging providers. It's basically based on the microprofile reactive messaging specification. So Quarkus lets you use that, and you can be your code can be abstracted away from the underlying provider, and you can use reactive programming, so you don't have to block your threads while waiting for a response, and it works together very nicely.
But you don't need to write reactive code to use messaging.
Of course you don't, but you can.
I mean, it does feel like a sort of a natural fit, doesn't it? But yeah, you're totally right, Martin. I guess just thinking about it, like another thing that's sort of really helpful with Quarkus is the dev services, because for messaging, if you're sort of trying to write a messaging application, you kind of really need to have the messaging infrastructure there, which can be a pain. And, and then you need sort of like multiple applications to be like talking to the same one and that kind of thing. And so then you have to sort of coordinate it. And I guess what Quarkus does with dev services in terms of using test containers to stand up your messaging backend, but then also allowing them to be discovered by other Quarkus applications so you can sort of test it in that way is pretty cool.
Yeah. And you will see that by the end when you will run like 3 services which are connecting to Kafka. I think 2 are connecting to RabbitMQ, and there is only one instance. Everything magically connects together.
Yeah, very nice. So I've got the same question for you, Martin. Not about messaging, because that would be too easy. About sort of, what is the Quarkus approach to front end?
Well, there are so many options that you can choose from. We chose HTMX as just because we wanted to make it as simple as possible for the book. That was like only a single page of HTML. So for me, it was more learning where to put everything, how to configure everything, so it's exposed in this way. But it also opened me a way, and actually after this chapter I started writing my first dev UI in my extensions, so that was useful. But in general, like you can use possibly any form of JavaScript framework or even like libraries which are integrated in Maven artifacts, which are included in your jar. We have this one person which is very passionate about front-end in Quarkus team, and he comes with a lot of great ideas all the time. So definitely check out the Quarkus documentation, because we can like speak about this for the whole 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If we would list everything.
Yeah.
But you can also use Java-based frameworks for frontends. We have integration with Vaadin, for example. That's very nice.
Definitely, if there is no integration for your current front end, that's probably something that we can do. But I don't think that there is something that we don't have.
Yeah, I always have a soft spot for Vaadin, because I went to visit the Vaadin team once, and it was in Finland, because that's where they're based, and it was February. So it was very, very cold. And I arrived and they offered me ice cream, which was not what I wanted in February in Finland, but it was ice cream. So I took it good folks over at Vaadin. They give visitors ice cream. But going back to the book, so we sort of talked about like the learning, and this is, again, sort of a slightly unfair question, but I think, in the process of writing a book, there's probably always that moment when you're like questioning your life choices. And, Jan, you're sort of thinking, I used to think Martin was a friend, and now I realize, he's the worst thing, ever. So what section was it, or sort of what external event was it that kind of made you question your life choices? Or was it just, happy all the way through?
Well,
I'm interested.
Yeah.
Is he still a friend?
For me, actually, the containerization and Kubernetes thing was a bit harder to comprehend. That there's multiple things that come into play, like managing the images, building the images, managing them, pushing them to a registry, and it all can get quite complicated. Even though Quarkus really does what it can to help make your life easier by generating Kubernetes manifests and stuff. Still have to manage the images and I remember we had a lot of problems because I use Podman on my machine and Martin uses Docker. And even though they should work the same, they actually don't. So we had some issues writing Docker Compose scripts in a way that they will work the same on mine and Martin's machine. And on the readers' machines, that's even worse.
Yeah.
I also have Podman, just to say. And this is not issue of Quarkus, this is issue of Podman.
I mean, yeah, it's such a complex ecosystem, isn't it? I was rereading the book before we talked, and one of the things that, I really liked about what you did was that you sort of talk really early on about when people should use native and when they should use JVM. And I see people sort of getting muddled a lot about this because, Quarkus makes native way easier, but then people sort of think, oh, well, they have to use native with Quarkus. And then, of course, then there's been sort of lots of conversation about the sort of the future of native as well. So what advice do you have for people about when to use JVM and when to use native? So
actually, I'm very glad that you asked that because this question is coming all the time, everywhere when we talk about Quarkus. Many people kind of associated that native compilation is the end goal that you have to do the end step before the production, which is totally not true. And I'm very happy that I was able to finally draw this diagram, which I'm always drawing to everybody on every conference in a book. However, you will not see it because it's too light in the book. But we can
you just have to buy the book and then you can see the diagram.
So basically, the problem with the native compilation is that you will get very fast to start, very low on memory binary. But because it is using ahead of time compilation with a closed word assumption, that means that you freeze your world at the time of the compilation, that performance is high, but it's static in time. With JVM, you will start definitely on a lower performance. And now by performance, I mean throughput, really requests per second, let's say. We will start lower with the performance, but as JVM optimizes your code and JIT will do its magic, you will always get better performance if you let the JIT do its magic long enough. GraalVM is trying to get there, but usually, at least by now, it's still a big enough difference that it doesn't make sense that if you are running services for some time, so that's typical microservices or normal applications in cloud, then definitely stick to JVM. If you really want to do serverless deployments where you really have application that needs to start fast because of cold start and it doesn't live long, that's where native makes sense. Or CLIs, which I love.
Yeah, I saw a fantastic demo a couple of years ago of Quarkus for CLIs, and the native start was so fast that you could get the autocomplete, and it was, it was instantaneous in terms of perception, but under the covers, it was firing up a native image, asking what options were, and then bringing it back down again. It was very, very cool.
And I actually have this kind of use case right now because in Slovak and Czech languages from where we are local, we have a lot of these diacritics, small characters, which I am very lazy to write because I can really write fast ASCII and I'm extremely slow with the diacritics. So now I have a command line application that will send my clipboard to some unnamed LLM to give me diacritics and put it back into my clipboard. Perfect.
Oh, I'm fascinated by that because, of course, I am hopeless with any kind of character decorations because I'm not accustomed to them. But I assumed that you would just be doing them super instantly. But I feel a bit better that I'm so bad with them now. So the last question. So I know we already sort of waved our books, which is quite exciting, and I think writing a book, it is a little bit raising a child in terms of, you put so much into it and then you send it off into the world but I know, Jan, as well, that, you've just been saying that you got a puppy recently. And I also just got a puppy recently. And so now I know that raising a puppy is a little bit like raising a child, which means that raising a puppy is like writing a book, which means, and the internet is for cats, but the secondary purpose of the internet is for puppies and dogs. So I don't know if your puppy is sort of convenient to like for us to be able to see the puppy.
Yeah, just give me a minute. I think my kids are playing with her right now. I'm trying to find her around the house. Give me a minute.
Yeah, excellent. And while we're waiting, Martin, because I think you have like the adult version. Oh, but I should clarify, that's not an adult version of a dog. That's an adult version of a cat, just in case anybody's curious.
That's my little demon, my own demon.
Oh.
Her name is Scratchy. She's scratching a lot. Well, you love them. And I also have a dog, but now I'm in a standing desk, so I don't really want to hold her up. Or should I? Ukażesz się.
Hey, show yourself. So this is Terry. She's like 2.5 months old. We have no idea what race she is. She's a crossbreed of something and something. We have no idea. And yeah, just today she found a dead bird in the garden and tried to bring it in the house and eat it. Which was
so that was the equivalent of the containers chapter, right? Of like, why did I do this to myself?
Yes.
Oh, amazing! Thank you very much, both for the chat and for the puppy cam. Absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I have read the book. I loved the book. I would absolutely encourage people who want to know more about Quarkus, but also people who know Quarkus in a lot of depth, because there's so much in the book that you will absolutely learn something from the book. So again, yeah, thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, Jan.
Thank you, Holly, for interviewing us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the GoTo podcast. Head over to gotopia.tech to discover lots more content from the brightest minds in software development.